This is my 130 square foot studio apartment located in Seoul, Korea that I lived in for 2 years. I recently moved out, but before moving, I decided to document the space. Monthly rent was 510,000 won, and the deposit that is returned to you when you move out was 10 million won. While I did love my studio, it was quite a challenge since it was so small. Not only was storage a problem, since I was a student at the time, I needed to fit in a bed and a decent sized desk as well. The studio was also pretty dark and would only get a small ray of sunshine for about an hour a day. This made the space feel sad, gloomy, and even smaller than it already was. Just like rentals all around the world, I wasn't allowed to make any permanent changes. However, it was especially challenging as walls in Korea are not painted but wallpapered instead. This means absolutely no drilling holes, no adhesive tapes, or anything whatsoever that might damage the wallpaper. As we go through the home, I'll show you how I tackle these challenges along the way. The first thing you see upon entering the studio is my workspace. This desk wasn't just a space to get work done. Other than a place to house my stationery, it doubled up as my dining table too. Next to the window above my desk, I placed a blackboard for quick notes and a fabric poster. This poster actually served to cover up the unsightly electrical box underneath. Since the poster was light, I simply used a sewing pin to pin it directly onto the wallpaper. And this brings me to my first tip on how to hang things on the wall without drilling holes. Next to my desk, there was this awkward shaped corner that made it difficult to fit any sort of shelving. So instead, I used it to store my luggage and other random items and concealed everything with a curtain. Right next to the workspace was a closet that came with the place. It wasn't very big, so all off-season clothes had to go underneath my bed. Since there wasn't enough space for a vanity, I hung hooks on the door for my makeup instead. Right across the closet is the bed. I poured the most into this area, and it truly is the heart of my home. Nearly half of all of my belongings I stored underneath my bed. I opted for a storage bed that comes with drawers where I stored towels, sheets, toiletries, and stationery. There's even more storage in the inner half that I used to store large suitcases. For my linens and pillows, I kept things simple using mostly neutrals. I did, however, add this pillow from IKEA that ended up determining the color palette for the whole space. If you haven't caught on by now, I absolutely love plants. However, because my place barely gets any light, I had to rely on grow lights to feed my addiction. I even mounted my plants to make a 3D gallery wall. Believe it or not, most of my frames are actually from Daiso. One quick tip I have to make the frames look better is to remove the plastic glass that comes with it. To put up little postcards, I used washi tape that isn't super sticky. To get everything else up on the walls, I relied on this 5-pin hook, which is surprisingly strong and can hold up to 2 kilograms. To hang heavier items like my mirror, I used 3 hooks and some high school physics. I used 2 hooks on top to distribute the weight evenly, and then added a hook on the bottom just as a safety precaution. These hooks were actually recommended to me by my real estate agent, though I doubt he imagined that I put up over 20 hooks. But so far, I haven't had any problems at all. I even got my deposit back from my landlord when I moved. From the bed, you have the lovely view of the kitchen. While this kitchen isn't very spacious at all, it is actually considered pretty large for a studio in Seoul, but it is still pretty small for someone who cooks quite often. The upside though is that studios usually come with a washer, fridge, and a stovetop. While a microwave isn't always included, it often comes with the unit too. To find ways to maximize my space and keep things organized, I watched countless videos and spent countless hours studying every detail of my kitchen. Here are some of the things I found that worked for me. Firstly, I got smaller bottles for sauces and seasonings since the larger original ones would take up too much precious countertop space. This way, I can have easy access to the seasonings I use on a regular basis and store the bigger bottles somewhere else. Next, I also maximized every inch of the kitchen by making full use of various hooks. Over-the-cabinet hooks for kitchen utensils, my kitchen towel, hooks on the tile for my seasoning rack, hooks for the cutting boards, mugs, kitchen scissors. If it could be hung, I definitely did. And since there aren't any drawers, I dumped all of my cutlery and even more kitchen utensils in one container. Below the sink, I stored a few pantry items, pots, pans, and other cooking tools. It definitely took some trial and error to find the best configuration, but I ended up with this one. With the pans stacked sideways, pots on top of each other with the ones used most frequently on top, shorter pantry items in front, and everything that is used occasionally at the back and behind this bar in the center. And of course, I added more hooks to the cabinet doors to hang baskets for more storage. Above the sink is where I store all of my bowls and plates. I also store a couple of cups and more pantry items. While store-bought organizers are useful, I find that packaging boxes and a little bit of Tetris work just as well too. Right next to the sink is this cabinet that serves the kitchen, entryway, and bathroom. This cabinet is actually part of the entryway and is separated from the rest of the studio by this tiled landing. There isn't much here other than the trash can, recycling bins, as well as this shelf. This shelf was actually a DIY combining a plate rack, a floating shelf, and the 5-pin wallpaper hooks. Honestly, it wasn't the best, but it did its job. Right next to the entryway and across the kitchen is my tiny bathroom. It's so tiny that they could barely fit the sink with the door clearance, and there's maybe 1 foot between the edge of the toilet and the wall in front of it. As for the shower, it's right at the corner and is attached to the sink through this hose. Despite being tiny, I am grateful that the bathroom came with some storage like this rack above the sink and this cabinet above the toilet. I tried my best to add warmth wherever possible, and while it isn't perfect like the rest of the house, I am really grateful for this studio. It nurtured my interest in design and forced me to think of ways to make the best out of what I had. It definitely isn't one of those glamorous apartments in Seoul with floor-to-ceiling windows that are all over YouTube. And honestly, most affordable places here aren't either. But this studio is filled with warmth, and I always looked forward to coming home. Moving out was bittersweet, but I look forward to the new chapter of my life in my new home.